It's just fascinating, I think, to see the way he does this. He begins immediately talking about who God is. God who made heaven and earth does not dwell in temples made by hands. In other words, God is independent. He's not in need of me. He's not in need of you. He has set the boundaries of habitation. He's sovereignly orchestrated everything in the world in which we live. And by the way, Paul says, he's given you life and breath and all things. In him you live and you move and you exist. Now, why does Paul start with God? He starts with God because he knows the people to whom he speaks know God, and he knows that the idols that are present in Athens are not there by virtue of ignorance, but they're there by virtue of suppression of the truth and unrighteousness. They're holding down their knowledge of the true God. So Paul begins then, he connects the truth of who God is with the truth that God has already given to them by natural revelation. Then what he does, this is most fascinating, he takes two Greek poets and quotes these poets to these Athenian philosophers as a part of his defense of Christianity. Now, why does he do that? Again, people will differ on this, but here's my point. When Paul says, he quotes Epimenides and he quotes Aratus, probably Epimenides, we're not sure, but surely Aratus, let's say Epimenides. He quotes one saying, in him you live and move and exist, and then the second one, we are his offspring. Now, here's the question. When Epimenides wrote, in him we live and move and exist, is that statement true? I ask my students that question and I get this. They sort of stare at me because they know it's kind of a trick question, and it kind of is. Is it true when Epimenides says, in him we live and move and exist, is it true? For Epimenides, when he wrote it, no, it isn't, because the him to which the statement refers is Zeus. Same thing with Aratus. We are his offspring refers to Zeus. So those propositions, those very statements are false. What Paul does, persuasively, he takes what they already know, he brings it into his defense, but he's already defined the him, not as Zeus, but as the God who made heaven and earth does not dwell in temples. This is the one. So Paul says, even as your own poets have said, in him, in the God that I've just proclaimed, in the God that I've just told you about, in him we live and move and exist, we are his offspring. And then Paul says, being the offspring of God, we ought not to think that that gods are like images we make, but that you are image of. In other words, he's making the point there. So the persuasion there is, number one, that you reach in, as it were, to the soul of these people where they actually know God. You reach into their inner soul where God has made himself known, and you connect with who God is. And then you take from what they already know in their own culture, and you reorient that, you reinterpret it, you retranslate it as now a Christian true proposition. That's also a point of persuasion. So in all of this, what are you doing? You're arguing your point. Paul knew he knew what he was up against in Athens. He was a brilliant man. He's arguing his point, two modes of persuasion. Subjectively, what's going on inside, these people know God, and then objectively, culturally, what's going on. They know these statements, and now they've been reinterpreted.